Hi guys, it's me again, here's the Fox. Still getting you guys up to date on the shit. So, after I did that first drive, lots of data logging, getting things dialed in. Next step is just getting it all ready for the dyno. If you haven't done a dyno day before, especially with a new vehicle, it can be very hectic and nerve-wracking. So I was just really in my nerves on getting everything in order. I wanted it to go well, especially because it was an hour and a half drive there, and I was towing with my Suburban. So I had work to do on the Suburban to get that ready too. It was my first time towing with my own vehicle out of town. So there was a lot going on. So I did my best. It was not an L, but it was not a win either. So let's get you up to speed on that dyno. And also, these were the tires that I was running when I got it going on the street. These are 295 50-15s, so they're properly sized. It's what I use to mock up the rear end. But they're not my forever tires. I was definitely going to be running drag radials and something more sticky. So this is the tires that were on it for dyno and running around on the street that first bit. So after starting this project April of 2016 and building it for over 6 years, 4 of which was spent in this area right here in the back of my dad's shop, it came out, it drove, it saw the world, and it even got me back. So it all went really well. I took it pretty easy. There was no leaks, and I just got a lot of data. A lot of the first drives on a project like this is just tuning and getting things configured and dialed in. Most of which was, here's a prime example, front wheel speed sensor. I fought this thing for a long time. I'm using the stock ABS sensor for a 01 Mustang Cobra, and the hall sensor just would not pick it up. I ended up having to go to a stock ABS sensor and use a signal conditioner. And then another thing I noticed, my primary fuel pump was not exactly up to par. It was a Walbro 450 that was about a year and a half old, so I just figured, oh, maybe it's going bad. So I replaced it with a Hellcat 525 to match the secondary pump. And then I realized it was just my check valve failing. So when I wasn't working on the car, I was tuning on the car. So that was a low speed third gear pull to see exactly where my torque converter stalls at. Do note I did this before the dyno. This is all street testing, and I'm just kind of working lowest boost 5 psi, which is my wastegate pressure. I'm not adding any dome or turning it up at all. I'm just kind of getting things in order on this low power and running around with it. This is my first stalled auto. I really want to point that out. This is my first time doing an actual auto drag car. So I should have kept in mind this was my stall speed. With this power level, this will always be my stall speed. But nonetheless, got everything in order and loaded up on the trailer. And obviously I was, tuning until the day of dyno, but I felt like I had everything in order. So headed off hour and a half north and hit the rollers.
So that was my first and ended up being my only dyno pull that day. So I was running into an intermittent issue of my rear wheel speed sensor not always working. So you ready for the real irony here? My rear wheel speed was working as he ran it through the gears, did first, second, third, and got some wheel speed, and then didn't do a pull. He wanted to recheck the straps, make sure everything was tight, rightfully so. And so he brought it back down to a stop. And as you can see, I still have some idle tuning to do there. But yeah, when he brought it back up to speed again, my rear wheel speed sensor happened to not be working during the dyno pull. And that was probably the biggest thing that like gave me my medium L for this day, is the thing basically shot up to 6,700 straight away. And we ended up just blaming it on the converter. We figured, oh, it's driving right through the converter, and seeing how this was my lowest boost setting and still on pump gas, I brought E85. I even brought drag radials. I was prepared to give it the beans, but we just figured it was going to be driving through the converter worse if we give it any more power. I didn't notice the sparks from the rollers. That might have been a rock or two stuck in the tread, but I mean, it was clearly spinning the rollers. And what's weird is it kind of hung. Normally when you spin the rollers, it's just going to flash up. It's going to hit rev limiter. I had my rev limiter set at 7K and a soft rev limiter at 6,900. So it was sitting right near there, and it, you know, it coupled up at 68 and then kind of settled, and then it started tickling that soft rev limiter at 6,900 right here. So yeah, it spun the rollers. If my rear wheel speed sensor happened to be working during the pull, it would have been a dead giveaway. And once again, this is my first stalled auto. I should have just remembered, oh yeah, it stalls at 55, 56. But no, we blamed the converter, and I pretty much packed up and called it a day. It ended up just being a cold solder joint on the rear wheel speed sensor. I fixed it the day after the dyno, but yeah, round trip 3-hour tow just to find that out. It ended up showing a 348 wheel horsepower on this pull. This is a very low reading Mustang dyno, so it is what it is there. And there's me getting my wheel speed sensors working pretty much a couple days after the dyno. I got the front wheel speed working finally, and we can start playing with traction control and everything too then. So still progressing with the car, just dyno day was a bust. So after reviewing the data and the footage and everything, I decided the best thing to do at this point was put on stickies, do some runs on the street, see if in fact my torque converter is too loose or not. No, I couldn't stay on these steelies here. This was just to get me going. So after that, I got some Jegs SSRs, some skinnies, the 165 80 15s and 15x4s. Felt like it was sitting pretty nice there. And there's my launch retard, and try to do a launch. Alright, so this is the log from my first launch ever. I went ahead and ran it basically to 8th mile. So we have front and rear wheel speed sensors working now. VSS 1 is rear, and that's front. So I had my trans brake set at 3,500, which is kind of low, I'm finding out, because it just kind of hit the tires too hard. So I was only at half throttle. That proved to be too much. It started spinning right away, so chop throttle to 41%, and still kept on baking them. So I kind of just let it hung there and spin. 38% throttle. So yeah. And then if you look here, rear wheel speed started to catch up. As soon as it did, I started to get back in the throttle a little more. We're getting up on the top of first gear, so I wanted to keep it moving. Started spinning again. I did the 1-2 shift and spun a little more, so I chopped throttle some more for the 1-2 shift. So we got about 12 mile an hour differential there. I'm still not using traction control. I'm pulling a lot of power and I'm still trying to get it dialed in, but this was like the first legit pull and pass. So yeah, wooded it for second, pulled good, and then I purposely short shifted the 2-3, and that was just so I could see what the converter would pull it down to after a shift. And you can see it's pulling down to 5,700. So it's about right. Honestly, I'm happy with the converter. I'm regretful that I doubted it so much. I'm regretful I wasted so much time and gas driving just to think it was bad when it isn't, but it's good news that it's not bad. So everything else is looking pretty good. I lifted a little early for the 8th, so yeah, not bad for a first pass. It went really nice and straight. Can't complain too hard at all.